Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we are taking a really thrilling look at one of the most vividly intense warnings in all of biblical history. We're going to be decoding it from what often feels like a message of pure fear into a highly practical, absolutely brilliant blueprint for resilience. So, let's peel back the layers on what this ancient spiritual predator is really all about and strip away the anxiety to find the deeply empowering core message underneath.
Okay, let's just dive right into it. Listen to this heavy, dramatic verse from the Apostle Peter. Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. Wow, right? It's an incredibly intense image. Honestly, you can almost hear the roar just reading it. But here's the thing, this isn't just about scaring early Christians. It actually sets up a massive question about what they were truly facing, and more importantly, what we are supposed to do about it today.
Section 1. The Roaring Lion, a spiritual predator on the hunt. Now, when you hear about a literal prowling lion, your natural human instinct is probably to freeze up, to panic, or just to live in this constant state of anxiety, right? And that leads to a really common myth, that this warning was designed to create paranoia or scare believers into submission. But the reality? It's actually far more constructive. It isn't about fear at all. It's a powerful call for active, disciplined awareness and spiritual readiness.
Moving on to Section 2, Unpacking the Original Greek, Decoding Ancient Commands.
To truly understand the heart of what Peter's getting at here, we kind of have to play detective for a minute and look at the original Greek vocabulary because sometimes, our modern translations miss the raw punch of the original words. The command to be alert comes from the word Gregorio. Now, this isn't some passive state of just keeping your eyes open. It literally means to stay awake, to be watchful, or to remain on high alert. Think of the intense watchfulness a guard has on the night watch. That's Gregorio.
And this pairs up perfectly with the word neo, which is usually translated as sober-minded. Basically, it's telling us to keep our mental faculties super sharp and free from intoxicating distractions. When you put Gregorio and neo together, the takeaway is undeniable. This is a call for an incredibly active, deeply disciplined awareness. You literally have to be spiritually sharp.
Okay, this is where the threat gets super specific. The Greek word antidikos reveals that our adversary isn't just a mindless monster. Actually, scratch that. It's a very specific, personal, prosecuting opponent whose primary strategy is to slander you. This is literally a legal term. It paints this vivid picture of an opponent in a courtroom bringing direct accusations against you. So we aren't talking about a vague, nebulous negative force here. We're talking about a highly targeted opponent.
And finally, we have katapino. This word shows us that the endgame isn't just a minor setback. The predator's goal is complete spiritual ruin, to completely wipe out your faith and your joy. It translates to devour, but literally, it means to swallow whole or consume completely. It perfectly highlights just how serious and destructive the intent is. The predator isn't looking to just give you a bad day. They are looking for total consumption.
Which brings us to Section 3, the predator's true strategy, tactics of the wild.
Think about how this works in the wild. A roaring lion basically relies on two brutal tactical steps, using fear to paralyze and chaos to isolate you from your community. First up, the roar is pure intimidation. A predator uses it because it triggers an involuntary freeze response, completely overwhelming the prey with fear. Second, that roar creates chaos, effectively scattering the herd. Why? Because a lion doesn't attack a strong, unified group. No way. It isolates the weakest, most vulnerable members who are separated from safety. It's a brilliant, terrifying tactic. Create fear and force isolation.
Section 4. Context. Trust over terror. The comforting framework.
Now, if all of this feels terrifying, don't worry, because the context completely flips the script. Peter deliberately takes this massive threat of the lion, the prosecuting accusations, and the paralyzing fear, and places it right next to the ultimate comfort of God's care. The verses immediately preceding this warning are entirely about trusting His timing, humbling yourself under God's mighty hand, and casting all your anxieties on Him. So this massive, terrifying warning is actually sitting securely inside a protective bubble of comfort.
So the absolute crucial point here is that you don't fight the lion with your own strength. You do it by casting your anxieties on the God who cares for you. The call to be vigilant is not meant to float in a vacuum of fear. It is built entirely on the solid foundation of relying on God's power. You are watchful exactly because you know you are cared for. Your defense isn't panic, it is absolute trust.
And you know, Peter also provides a huge dose of courage here by reminding his readers that they are part of a global family enduring these trials together. The text explicitly reminds us that our suffering isn't unique to us. Believers everywhere are facing the exact same struggles. This immediately counters the lion's tactic of isolation. You are not alone. You are part of a massive global family that is enduring and overcoming together.
Let's move to section 5, your spiritual firewall, standing firm in the modern age.
So how does this ancient text apply to us today? Well, think of vigilance like a spiritual firewall. If your computer doesn't have a firewall, it gets pinged and scanned by malicious bots constantly, right? They're just looking for an open gap. Being sober-minded, staying spiritually alert, is your firewall. The threats are absolutely out there, scanning the network for vulnerabilities, but your alertness closes the gaps the enemy is desperately looking for.
To maintain that firewall, Peter gives us this incredibly practical checklist for resistance, which centers entirely on mental clarity and community over panic. First, stay mentally sharp and clear-headed. Watch out for those tiny, subtle temptations and seeds of discouragement. Remember, that's the prosecuting attorney whispering accusations. Second, avoid isolation at all costs. Stay connected to your herd, your community. And finally, actively take a defiant stance. You stand your ground and resist by anchoring yourself in what you firmly know to be true about God's care.
When you look at it through this lens, it changes the whole shebang. 1 Peter 5:8 is not a horror story designed to make you anxious, but a manual for confident, watchful living. Yes, spiritual opposition is real and it is active, but your defense is mental clarity, and your vigilance is rooted in trusting God, not your own frail abilities. You are called to actively resist with courageous resilience, not to be paralyzed by a roar.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final, slightly provocative thought to really chew on. Peter wrote these words nearly 2,000 years ago, but honestly, the pull of anxiety and distraction feels more relevant today than ever. In a modern world that is constantly vying for your attention, trying to isolate you and fill you with anxiety, what does it truly mean for you to be alert and sober-minded today? Keep your firewall up, stay connected to your community, and stay watchful. Thanks for joining me.